Okay, good evening and welcome to our first One WILPF call of 2023. These calls are now quarterly. The next one will be in March, on March 9th. I'm Marybeth Gardam from Iowa. My co-facilitator tonight is Ashley Carrington from North Carolina. Our technical support teammate is Ellen Thomas from the mountains of North Carolina. This Zoom meeting is sponsored by members of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom US section. This is a public call and we're video recording. And the video will be posted in just a few days to WILPF YouTube channel and our One WILPF call webpage. Those links will be in the chat and on the text pad. Ellen, if you'd put the YouTube video into the chat link, I'll put the One WILPF call link into the chat. WILPF is the oldest women's international peace organization in the world, founded in 1915 by Jane Addams of Hull House. There are over 30 branches in the United States, and we're one of 50 sections around the world. You can find out more and join us at our website, www.wilpfus.org. It's on the text pad and in the chat, or it will be soon. WILPF is a sisterhood, though we welcome male, queer, and trans members too. These One WILPF call connections to one another keep us strong across the United States, and we're looking for volunteers to help plan and facilitate future calls for One WILPF Zooms. Please contact me at mbgardam@gmail.com to find out more or volunteer. Please remain muted when you're not speaking to reduce background noise, and we'll post the agenda in the chat. There's also a Google Doc, text pad, where you can add information, comments or links or references under the red line. The link to that text pad will also be in the chat.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ashley, she, they pronouns. Please remember to type your questions for Sally into the chat if you did not submit them ahead of time. Thank you for that. Currently, there is an unprecedented but almost unheard of upheaval happening in Iran. After the killing of Mahsa Amini in September of 2022, Iran was plunged into protest as citizens, women, and men alike took to the streets to protest her death. In the wake of this, the organization International Feminist for Jinnah was formed. In response to these protests, the Iranian government has employed inhumane, aggressive, and militaristic tactics to quell the voices of the Iranian people. Tonight, I am honored to introduce Sally Rahimi, a socialist feminist from Iran who is tirelessly organizing in the US. Sally is a member of Feminist for Jinnah, founder of International Feminist for Jinnah of NC, and co-founder of the International Feminist of NC Coalition. Sally is no stranger to protest, as her story has been fraught with struggle against the Iranian government. Yet she still speaks out for those who are being silenced and encourages others to use their voices, their power, bravely. Sally, it is my honor to welcome you to our very first One WILPF call for 2023. Thank you for being with us tonight. Would you please briefly give us a bit about your history, the current condition for women, girls, and gender-expansive individuals in Iran, the ways feminists are pushing back against the Iranian government, and the repercussions that they are enduring? And finally, please let us know how WILPF members can stand in solidarity with Iranian women and make change here in the US. Sally.
Thank you so much, Ashley, and thank you everybody else. Hello, my feminist sisters, and thank you for joining the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom in solidarity with Iranian women and girls. I also appreciate the Women's International League of Peace and Freedom of United States and the platform for tonight's opportunity. In the name of Women.Life.Freedom, Middle Eastern uprising led by women. in the name of working class Kurdish women in Turkey, Bakur, and their slogan, Women.Life.Freedom. In the name of our feminist sister in Afghanistan and Iran, and especially in the name of our feminist sisters, Dastgoharan in Baluchistan, who reminded us the importance of intersectionality. As Nawal El-Saadawi said, feminism is not a Western invention. And I would like to start with reviewing the lineage of women's rights movement in Iran. The Iranian women's struggles for equality and control over their own bodies has a long history of more than a century. There are records that show Iranian women are fighting against the patriarchal system starting in 1848, when they fought against the laws that attempt to control women's body autonomy and fate. Iranian women, like all other women around the world, fought for their fundamental rights, such as voting, studying, working, and equality for centuries. But the struggle of Iranian women became the most significant headline in the news since the killing of Jina Amini by morality police in Iran. The slogan, Women.Life.Freedom, as the uniting voice of uprising in Iran and outside of the Iran, all over the Middle East, became one of the most important headlines of the news. According to a research published by one of my fellow feminists, comrade Somaye Rostampour, this slogan itself is much older, and its story reveals many aspects of the current revolution in Iran. Jina Amini was from Saqqez, Kurdistan, and during her burial, the slogan "Jen Jian Azadi" was shouted out. It soon became widespread, and now it is the voice of revolution in whole country. This slogan is the heritage of Kurdish women's movement in Kurdistan of the Turkey, Bakur. Women with Life, Jin and Jian, is inspired by Mesopotamian mythology. The central idea of this mythology emphasizes that if matriarchy was possible in the historical time of Mesopotamia, it can come back again as a counter discourse against patriarchy, colonialism, imperialism, and most of the shape of the discrimination. In these formulations, women are creator of life, life givers, and they have also first invented science and tools to preserve life. Thus, they must get back to power. I also want to make it clear that Women.Life.Freedom movement is not simply because of hijab. After the 1979 revolution in Iran, women lost even the most basic and fundamental rights that they had. Indeed, they had fought to gain basic fundamental rights before the revolution, and they lost those limited rights as soon as Islamic Republic took control. I emphasize that we lost our basic rights since there was very basic rights, since there was no equality and therefore no equal freedom or rights for women before the 1979 revolution. Now, let me talk about discrimination, gender apartheid, oppression, and objectification of Iranian women by Islamic Republic. When talking about the violation of the rights to body autonomy, we are not talking about right to wear the hijab or not wear the hijab. I'm talking about marital rape, denial of child custody to women, inability to work, even leave the country without permission from their husbands or father. We are talking about child marriage on top of the systemic abuses women face. In some of the underprivileged areas, because of the state of the economy and poverty rates, family coerce their girls into marriage to older men because they simply cannot afford to provide and take care of the child. Honor killings are also a common issue in many areas of Iran, where the male family members kill the girls for refusing to marry the spouse the family has chosen for them, or husbands kills their wives for disobeying them. For example, recently, a father in the north of Iran beheaded his daughter in an honor killing and only faced 10 years in prison under the same justice system that gives out execution sentences to protesters. Like, as you know, you probably heard in the news, Iranian people are facing horrible prison sentence, and they're getting executed. But those people who kill their kind of like wife or their daughter, they're faced with 10 years, 5 years of the prison. So these are just a few examples of the many forms of discrimination and abuses women face in Iran. With all these restrictions in mind, women in Iran is still among of the most educated people in the country, even exceeding the men in their higher education. But it is more challenging for them to succeed in the workplace because of the limited position that they're available for them, as well as the continuing gender apartheid, gender inequality they have been facing since the beginning of their primary education. Oftentimes, they're coerced to marriage or forced to become a stay-at-home wives against their will. The few women who end up working either in office spaces or as a labor in some of the industrial field suffer from sexual harassment, discrimination. In some cases, they suffer from things as severe as molestation by their male coworkers or superiors. There are not enough laws in place to protect these women in workplace against such abuses. These kind of systemic control of the body autonomy and faith, oppression, and control of the woman in Iran also feminicizes poverty. And when poverty becomes feminine, men can continue to control the faith and body of women. Yet, unimaginable amount of pressure of the abuse, oppression, discrimination have not stopped Iranian women for demanding their female agency, but they also have been fighting against sexual objectification. The Islamic Republic legitimacy has been questioned and opposed since women protested on March 8, 1979 against the new government of Iran, demanding their equal rights until the December 14, 2022, Islamic Republic was expelled from United Nations Women's Rights Commission as the consequence of repressing Women.Life.Freedom protesters. As you know, the Human Rights Council of the United Nations also decided to establish an independent international fact-finding mission on the Islamic Republic of Iran concerning the situation of women and children in Iran. In fact, the woke Generation Z in Iran and their uprising are the conclusion of decades of women progress of fighting against the patriarchal system. This recent uprising is one of the most progressive movements since the marginalized women, like women from ethnic minorities such as Baluch women, or women of other nationalities like Lur and Arab women, spoke up and started demanding their equality. These uprisings, this revolution is no more the movement of privileged women in the big cities and big areas, but it also belongs to the working class women in countryside and rural areas. Now let's talk about all the expenses and consequences women are facing following Mahsa Amini death and Women.Life.Freedom uprising. Many women have been arrested, detained, or even kidnapped. Many have been killed, injured, blinded, or disabled because the Islamic Republic security agent aimed their weapons at women's eyes or their productive organs such as the breast and areas below the waist. If these women survive, if they're detained, they're sexually assaulted, tortured, physically and mentally in prisons. Some of these women are unwillingly medicated, or they are denied medical attention if they're sick and they need medication. When schoolgirls simply began removing their scarf during Women.Life.Freedom uprising, government agents began kidnapping them from school and admitting them to the mental asylums without letting their parents know, and forcefully medicating them and keeping them in those wards to punish them. So many women in prisons go on hunger strike to combat the abuse they face, or just for demanding their right to choose a lawyer. They don't have the right to choose the lawyer, even though it's the constitution of the law in Iran that everybody can choose a lawyer. When some of these women and girls are released, they are traumatized severely, so they commit suicide. In fact, Iranian government is trying to repress and oppress everyday people by arresting them and giving them terrifying prison sentences where rape and sexual harassment has been reported. Prisoners are receiving execution sentences. Until today, 4 working class men have been executed for participating in Mahsa Amini's uprising. Let me remind you, the Islamic Republic has been using women's bodies as a reproduction object to forcing them to get married, restricting contraception methods and tools, and prohibiting abortion to increase the population of Iran. Then in return, they abuse, kill, rape, execute their children that these women raised under the pressure of patriarchal system because those kids simply did not obey the oppressor. Then those mothers become the only force and the savior of their kids and start fighting the justice system. When their children are imprisoned or executed, they become grieving mother, yet they dance during the funeral to encourage the other revolutionaries to continue the fighting against injustice. There is no end to the cycle of violence against women within the Islamic Republic system and their borders. There is no way for justice or reform other than the formulation given by the slogan Women.Life.Freedom to preserve and save the life of people in Iran. Let me name a couple of these organizations that they are kind of like led by women after, during these many years after the revolution on Iran. So the grieving mother, the progressive mothers, Khavaran mothers, Dastgahoran, women in Baluchistan, feminists in Gilan, and the women activists inside of the Iran have been tirelessly trying to stop the government violence against the Iran population. They have published many statements to demand the rights and the human rights of Iranian people. There is only one way to support these brave women inside of the Iran, raising their voice while giving them the platform that they need. A week ago, women in Baluchistan, part of the Iran that is not privileged, made it very clear that the mainstream media tried to boycott and censor their voices. They have been stating that they don't need any dictatorship system or one-party state, no more. They don't need leadership. They don't need supreme leader, no monarch, but equality and democracy is what these people need, what these people want. However, so many mainstream platforms and celebrities have been selecting some part of the people's slogans, demands, and voices to promote and advertise their partisan self-interest. Iranian people in exile, celebrities, and opposition parties outside of the Iran cannot interpret and describe the progress of revolution, since the revolution in Iran has been evolving every single day. They can translate it to other languages, but they should not interpret Iranian women's demands and a statement. As much as Islamic Republic put pressure in the hope of stopping the progress of the revolution, Iranian people, especially women on the front lines, become more creative to confront these regimes. Therefore, what they want, what is their priority, and how they want to pursue the revolution must be decided, interpreted, and explained by themselves. Living with the access to technology made it possible to listen to the voices who need to be heard. I invite all my international feminist sisters to pay attention and follow with the same strength and conviction of the brave Iranian woman's voice. Follow the Iranian platform inside the Iran. Iranian women have been very creative in using this kind of platform to raise awareness and raise their voice. I think with that being said, I cannot really interpret or explain how the revolution of Iran is evolving. I would like to invite everybody to pay attention to a lot of like Facebook pages, Instagram pages, different kind of platform that Iranian women started, and just go there, read their statement. Iranian people from inside of the Iran, they're trying to translate a lot of statement, articles, news. So pay attention to those and try to be their voice outside of the Iran, and that's about it.
Thank you so much, Sally. And I really appreciate you being here as a personal thank you, but also for being here to inform us about how we can actually engage. We're going to move into questions right now. Please continue to drop questions in the chat if you have them. But Sally, we did have some questions that were pre-submitted. This comes from Clara. How can we help from Michigan, United States? And just to maybe broaden that a bit, how can we stand in solidarity with you in the United States? I know you mentioned Facebook pages and whatnot, but is there anything else that we could do that would aid in those messages being signal boosted? And would you also mind putting some of those pages in the chat when you get a chance so we can connect with them?
Definitely. Let me start with a recent story that I heard from one of my feminist sisters in Feminist Virginia in another states. They have been inviting a lot of feminist groups, political groups to join to the events. There is a fear of Islamophobia among feminist activists and political activists. that kind of like do not let them to completely join this recent movement. I want to explain a little bit about this issue. This is a kind of like intersectional issue. We are the women that we have been born and raised in Islamic State. We have been born Muslim. So this is our concern. This is our kind of a story. We want to explain about it. We want to criticize it. We want to fight against some of the Islamic rules and states that they control our bodies. This is not something that's supposed to be discussed or making a decision with kind of like the people who are not Muslim, who have not been under the pressure of the Islamic states. So I invite all my feminist sisters to kind of discuss this issue with Iranian feminists and try to have the conversation and understanding about the situation of the hijab. And I want to just explain this one. This is not the Islamophobia issue. This is the issue of the women having the right to their body, to their faith, to their kind of like equality. So that's very important. If you want to help from Michigan, please make sure that you reach out to the feminist people over there and you can help them to organize, you can help them to kind of like have a voice in their kind of like in the local platforms. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Our next question is from Tura. Iranian women have been participants and leaders in activism and revolution. What was your awareness of Iranian women's political history when you were growing up?
Okay. I think I explained starting 1979, a lot of women started kind of like fighting against the new government and the new regime. My family is also, I mean, the women in my family were among the one, they were opposing the new regime. They were criticizing the way they were kind of like trying to control women's body and their faith, and there was not enough opportunity for women to go to work, those kind of things, and the laws that they have been against women's rights. And I watched, simply I watched women in my family to fight and survive the game again. I mean, survive and fight against those kind of laws. And I have learned a lot from them. And after that, I think I was almost 22 years old that I started to knowing a lot of feminist activists inside of the country myself, and learning about how they're kind of like organizing, trying to start campaign. And that one was the moment I started learning much more about my rights and participating in lots of campaign there. And then I was inspired with their work. And yeah, that was the moments I just started being kind of like activist. Yeah.
And this is the second question from Tura. Who are your feminist mentors, and what articles, books, or blogs can you recommend to us? And if you wouldn't mind putting them in the chat as well.
Definitely. As I said, there are a lot of kind of like websites that you can look at them. One of them is Bidar Zani, means woke women. So that is the platform from inside of the Iran. They have a lot of Farsi articles. They also started kind of like translating their statement and kind of like articles in English. There is I think I have the name of that in the first of it is a Baluch name that I encourage all my kind of like feminist sisters to follow. That page is that's Goharan, which is the kind of like womanhood friendship with a Baluch woman. That's a very really important kind of platform that you can follow. There is a Blackfish Voice that I recommend. They are really kind of like honest and loyal to the news. They try to just have the voice of the Iranian people and Iranian women in their page. Those are the really good pages that you can follow the news from inside of the Iran.
Awesome. We've got a few questions in the chat. Let me pop over. So first question from in the chat from Mary Beth. I've heard that these, oh wait, nope. Here we go. Can you talk about how parents or mothers are reacting to the execution of their daughters? Are they supportive of the resistance?
Execution did not happen for women yet. After Women.Life.Freedom, we have had a lot of women execution, but related to this uprising, we didn't have executions of women. We had 4 executions until now. 4 young working men were executed. And other than that, lots of women were killed in the middle of the street or kind of like injured and killed inside of the prisons, not executed. Sometimes they torture them to death. Sometimes they shoot at them in the middle of the street. I can say the mothers of these young people have been very much brave. The way we kind of like mourn and the way we do the funeral includes a lot of crying and a lot of sadness. But recently, these mothers started dancing, singing, trying to encourage other revolutionaries to continue. It is not kind of like the funeral of losing a body. They think these people are alive through the revolution. They kind of like go, their fight, their ideology is alive among other people and other revolutionaries if people continue fighting against the injustice system.
Okay, and I think we've got time for maybe one more. So this one here is from Nancy Price. Do women in Iran and reach out and collaborate with women in other countries in the Middle East to build solidarity across borders?
Can you repeat the question? What was the question in that?
Do women in Iran reach out and collaborate with women in other countries in the Middle East to build solidarity across borders?
Yes, very important questions. Women from Afghanistan, women from Turkey, women from Syria, women from Palestine, women from Lebanon, they started kind of reaching out to each other and kind of like protest and kind of like join the solidarity with Iranian women, and they repeat the Women.Life.Freedom. That's really important. And they have lots of statements, and they made it clear that they kind of like, they follow Iranian news, and they think this is like women revolution that they want to follow, they want to support, and they want this revolution to win. You know, the freedom of Iranian women can be the start of freedom of women in Afghanistan. It can change a lot of things in Palestine. It can change a lot of things in Syria. It can change a lot of things even in Turkey. So, you know, Kurdish women, they live in Turkey, they live in Syria, they live in Iran. This is really important. If these slogans, if this revolution wins and it is ended with a kind of like the victory of the people, other countries, other kind of nations, other people in other areas of the Middle East can follow and can do the same things, and they can just overthrow the dictatorship that they have been suffering from them.
Hell yes. Thank you so much, Sally. Right now, I'm going to throw it over to Mary Beth.
Who is on mute? Okay. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Sally, and for your truly courageous work to make this situation better understood.
My pleasure.
We invite you to stay for the rest of the call, but we understand if you have to move on. We have a bunch of announcements that are important for the rest of WILPF, and we hope that folks will pay attention because there's a lot going on that we want you to know about. As we mentioned, these calls are less frequent during 2023, occurring just quarterly, so there'll likely be events and plans announced now that will be happening further out on our WILPF calendar. We hope this extra time helps our members, branches, and the public to get these actions onto their calendars and plenty of time to engage with other branches, members, and allies. So let's begin from hearing from the WILPF US, Cuba, and Bolivarian Alliance Committee about a conference coming up in March. I believe that Cindy is on the call. Is that right? Are you there, Cindy?
I think if Lenny's on there, maybe she could read it. I don't have it in front of me.
All right, let me do that.
Hey, Lenny, sorry. And I didn't include the conference.
No, I'm
This
just
material
going
is posted on the text pad as well. Just
Okay.
so you know.
Okay.
I'm just going to speak briefly about this Saturday, January 14th, when we are going to be doing a Zoom presentation to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. And our presentation is going to be about Cuba's families law. Whoa, when you screen shared, you wiped out what I had on my screen, which was what I was reading. Hold on. Let me dig it out somehow. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, Cuba's family laws, a reflection of Martin Luther King's vision of a new social order. And it is about Cuba's recently passed family laws, which make the Cuban Constitution and the Cuban family law system essentially the most progressive in the entire world, redefining marriage, the concept of families, and the rights of members of families. The changes include legalizing same-sex marriages and same-sex adoption, rights of grandparents, rights of children to be beloved and happy in their lives, and the responsibilities of the people who care for them to ensure that these rights are guaranteed. In this discussion, we're also going to learn about grassroots organizing by LGBTQ plus I plus organizations and other mass revolutionary organizations in Cuba, and how the passage of the nationwide referendum is a result of thousands of discussions held all over the country in a show of participatory democracy in Cuban society. And now you can take it away and show people the link, and it's also in the chat. And also, most of you can get in touch with me or with Cindy if you need the link to register, and it's going to be really interesting. Thank you very much. And I feel almost bad talking about Cuba in front of Sally, and
Don't.
thank you for your wonderful
It is really
presentation.
interesting topic. We follow. Believe me, it is a very good topic. Thank you so much.
Lenny, can you give us an update quickly on the UN vote on the blockade? It was going to happen in November, I think.
Well, the UN vote on the blockade happened in November. It was 182 to 2, something like that. It might have been 183 to 2. Essentially, every country in the world voted against the blockade. A few countries abstained, like Ukraine. And of course, Israel and the US voted no. There has been another recent UN vote I'd like to call to your attention, as long as you ask me, which is that Palestine asked the UN not to condemn even the Israeli occupation, but just to send it to the International Court for an opinion. And the Israelis went nuts. They've been killing people. They've canceled, all kinds of things, denied travel permits to officials of the Palestinian government. So we need to pay attention to that vote too. Sorry, I stepped over my boundaries, but I want you to think about that. The Israelis are so completely committed to oppression that they will not even allow the Palestinians to ask for a world court opinion on whether the occupation is legal.
Wow,
Thanks.
really, really incredible. Thank you so much, Lenny, for sharing with us. Hopefully many branches will register and learn more about what's happening and join you in solidarity. The next announcement comes from Women, Money, and Democracy Committee. Marybeth, what's new?
Okay, so in the January issue of our WILPF e-News, there's a great article about one of our committee's emeritus members, Jim Allison, who just turned 90. Together with his wife, Tommy, Jim has been a major contributor to the work of first the Corporations versus Democracy Committee, which later became the Women, Money, and Democracy Committee. He's written a dozen or so plays that educate about corporate power through wit and humor and are easily mountable by small community groups, branches, amateur actors. They're easy to mount and they're fun. Jim was also a contributor to the corporate study course in the mid-2000s and has remained focused on corruption at the Supreme Court and decisions that are purchased there by big business, corporate persons who stole the constitutional rights of human people and have systematically used them against us and the planet. In the latest midterm elections, the alarming and growing threat of big money calling the shots in our democracy could not be more evident. In November, CNBC reported an astounding $880 million spent by billionaires to influence the outcome of midterm elections. With greater threats to democracy and government for sale, we're calling January 21st, the Women, Money, and Democracy Committee is calling January 21st Jim Allison Day at WILPF. And we're asking members and the public across the US to take action this year and every year on that day to bring attention to this government for sale state of affairs. This year or in future years on January 21st, plan to do a public reading of one of Jim's plays, stage a protest or demonstration, hold a postcard writing event at Saturday, January 21st. So if you plan a protest, make sure it's someplace folks hang out on weekends and be sure to be visible as WILPF members. I'll put the link to our Women, Money, and Democracy webpage into the chat. All of Jim's plays are available there. And I just want to quickly introduce Mary Sanderson from our committee, who has another announcement from us real quick. Mary?
Greetings, everyone. This is an invitation from the Women, Money, and Democracy Committee. Please open your calendars. Many of you know or suspect deep inside that our privatized money system blocks every initiative for peace and healing, both in the US and internationally. This system of paying interest upon interest over centuries has fed the inequity and the forever wars. It brings us to the edge of social and environmental collapse. The system's name is bank credit because every dollar we use originated as someone's bank loan. On February 23rd, that's a Thursday, February 23rd, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, Women, Money, and Democracy invites you all to attend our webinar, The Future in Our Pockets, Making Money Work for Us for a Change. Marybeth and I will host Lucille Eckrich and Virginia Hammond from the Alliance for Just Money to start examining how our core WILPF principles and projects are always undermined by the bank credit system of money and what we can do about it. Thank you. February 23rd, Thursday, 5 o'clock Pacific. Thank you.
Okay, and now there's a short announcement from our WILPF US President, Darian DeLu. What do we need to know, Darian?
Thank you so much. It's great to see everyone, and thank you for the good presentation, Sally. I wanted to first start off with the year of the branch. That's the way I look at 2023. I've posted this announcement or an aspect of it and others on the text pad, so I hope everyone has that link. But we've been through the pandemic. It's time for us now to figure out, how do we do politics in pandemic times? Because we can't just wait until the pandemic's over. It's been 3 years now, folks. So I was delighted to hear about Jim Allison's plays. That would be a great way for a branch to do politics. A branch can get together and do Zoom rehearsals and eventually do a Zoom version of the play that is a focus for all kinds of additional discussion, letter writing, phoning Congress or whomever is useful to phone, acting locally, finding ways to take action locally, especially by coordinating, getting to know, making connections with other potential local allies. I heard about, for example, another branch that is finding ways to have engaging Zoom meetings. The Detroit branch is having a program presentation at the start of their meeting, and that's followed up with some kind of writing to decision makers. And I don't know if that's postcards, emails, letters, whatever it may be. Do they take texts these days? How about posting to Twitter? And we all love Twitter, of course, and all of the other anti-social media that's available to us. So that's the year of the branch, and I only have another minute and a half to talk about the other two announcements, but I think it's so important for us to build up our branches, reach out to new people who might want to become WILPF members. Then we have the WILPF Communications Committee is preparing to start up. It's been another 3.5-year project to get members for this committee, which is so much needed to coordinate and make coherent our WILPF activities in communications. So you can contact me about the Communications Committee to find out what kinds of people we need for this committee. Is there someone in your branch who would like to do probably a monthly Zoom call to develop plans, to be analytical, to write things? There will be all kinds of skills needed. And finally, this coming weekend is such an important and hard-won holiday weekend. Of course, a lot of people don't even have Monday as a holiday, but Martin Luther King Jr. has been so oversimplified in so many ways, yet the movements that he was working for had to do with economic justice, racial justice, peace, an end to the military-industrial complex. So many facets of his work are illustrated in a free film festival coming up throughout the holiday weekend. I put the link in the text pad. I participated in this film festival last year and was far too busy to view even a fourth of the wonderful films they have. You get to select all kinds of excellent things. So I highly recommend people share that information about the film festival, educate ourselves so that we can be a more informed movement. It's great to see everybody here. Thank you.
Thanks, Darian. Next up is our Disarm Committee. They have a lot going on and they have a representative here to tell you all about it. Cheryl or Ellen?
Cheryl Spencer, I will be telling you, and I have put all these details in the text pad, and I will copy them into the chat shortly, because there are some links that we need you to go to. January is a very busy month for those of us working against nuclear weapons, working for peace in Ukraine, and working to reduce the threat of nuclear war. So the first thing that I want you to try to attend is next Saturday, the 21st of January. So it's a busy weekend. There's going to be a very long conference on the web arranged out of the Massachusetts Peace Action, but with well-known people from the nuclear disarmament and peace movement speaking. I will be in a panel. They're going to have some breakouts. I will be in a panel talking about the TPNW, Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And so that whole thing starts at 10 a.m. if you're in California. And it's a free webinar. It may last 5 hours, but you can register and drop in and out as your timing allows you. But I recommend it. We're trying to reach some new constituencies. We're trying to reach, for example, nurses and doctors to get them involved more in realizing how awful the result would be of a nuclear weapon actually going off. So that's the first thing. The second item to tell you about is the Peace in Ukraine Coalition that we belong to. We have a 2 weeks of action starting tomorrow with events. There are already 26 events posted on their website, peaceinukraine.org. I'll put it in the chat. 26 events all over the country to bring attention to the public and ultimately to Congress that the continued fighting in Ukraine is not going to bring the war to an end. Nobody is going to win this war. We might as well use a diplomatic solution right away. And there's lots of resources in that website. Also, if you flyers to hand out and banners and things like that. But we do have something to celebrate, and that's my third item. Those of you know about the TPNW, it entered into force actually 3 years ago. So on January the 22nd, and so now every year around the 22nd of January, we celebrate this thing called entry into force, which means there are certain countries who've agreed to never have anything to do with nuclear weapons. We're up to 68 countries who've ratified it. And so again, there is a website where you can find actions going on and resources. Many branches had banners made last year, 2 years ago, yellow banners saying nuclear weapons are now illegal. They're illegal in 68 countries. And so that's another thing. That weekend, if you're going to go stand outside Lockheed Martin or Raytheon, you want to do that on the Friday, because you want the workers at those places to see that not everybody thinks nuclear weapons are a good idea, or missiles that would deliver them. So that we're trying to look positive and say, look how many countries have renounced having anything to do with nuclear weapons. And in about 6 minutes, another webinar will start, which you could join later. I'll give you the link, which again is connecting the writings of Martin Luther King, who talked about the thermonuclear disaster that would come about. And so again, they have a stupendous list of speakers, including Daniel Ellsberg, Reverend Liz Theo-Harris, and some other people. It's starting in 6 minutes. It goes for an hour and a half. You can join it at any time. So those are 3 things that we'd like you to do in January. And we have many other campaigns out of our committee, Disarm Committee. If you'd like to join the committee, we welcome new people. disarmchair@wilpfus.org is who you write to get subscribed to our committee list. So thank you, everybody, for what you're doing. And if you can't get out, writing to your congressperson phoning your congressperson. Those are the easy things you can do from home to say, please end this war diplomatically in Ukraine. Killing more people is never going to end up in peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cheryl. That is a lot from Disarm. Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia, just recently held its second Human Rights Conference in December. And I believe Teresa El Amin is here to describe how the conference turned out and what the branch's outlook is for 2023. Passing over to Teresa.
Hey, Ashley, looking at the participants list, Teresa isn't coming up unless she's under somebody else's name.
Okay, I think she was here in the beginning, at least.
Yeah.
I thought I saw her.
I thought that she was here. Maybe she has dropped off. Marybeth, do you want to just go ahead? And then hopefully if she comes in, we can circle back.
All right, unless George has a report from that conference.
I actually don't. The morning session was awesome, and that was online and recorded, and that had many of you in. But then, and that was on the TPNW, which was fantastic, with Patrick from North Carolina and Rebecca Irby. But on the ground in Columbus, they had the main event, I would say, in person, and it was a expungement event in terms of ending mass incarceration, an expungement event where people who qualified, the DA for the county was there. There was support from a state organization in Georgia that works to end in mass incarceration. And part of that, so that people aren't carrying around records that can, affect their ability to get jobs and buy and rent homes and teach in certain places. They were able to come that day and get their records expunged, including our good sister Teresa, who had a record for protesting that she thought that had been dismissed. And she thought that if you dismiss something, it means it's expunged. It's not. So if y'all ever had something dismissed, you might want to know about that. But I don't have any details beyond just what I heard her share. So there you are.
Okay, all right, thanks a lot, George. I wanted to introduce Dee Murphy. Dee is a representative of WILPF US at the WILPF International Board, and she asked to speak about her observations there. So Dee, go ahead.
Hi, Marybeth. Actually, at this point, we're still forming. There's still a lot of developments regarding the structure of how this will operate, but there are some questions regarding the democratic processes of this board, our level of participation being welcomed, whether we're just an institution to support the international program, or can we bring concerns? And so while those questions are waiting to be answered, there may be a couple of people that have already resigned, feeling that, when I've spoken with them, their sentiments are that it's going to take a lot of work to make this a democratic process, and therefore, there's other projects that they can put full-time attention into. But by March, we should have a clearer idea of how this will go, and that is the point at which I'd like to speak more and engage and ask our membership what their thoughts are as far as approaches to getting greater interaction with the
This is about internationals self evaluation, or
these are reflections that some of the members have posted to the discussion list that's set up.
Yeah.
And some people that have resigned, I just wanted to compare notes with them, and have been in touch with them via email to find out, whether the sentiments that I picked up on from the discussion list and on my own are their reflection and had any part to do with not wanting to remain involved.
Okay, well, thank you. I think we have to always acknowledge that operating in a national or international organization has its own challenges, and let's hope that they can work them out.
Yes, we'll have a clearer idea by the March One Wealth meeting.
Okay, great.
Thank
Yeah, thanks for the report. The Earth Democracy Committee has an offer for our branches, members, and the public. We have Marguerite Edelman here to describe a way to use water testing in your community to increase your branch's visibility and even recruit new members while you address local water quality. If you're planning for this now, you can roll out perhaps an action that matters for World Water Day by the spring. That's Wednesday, March 22nd. Marguerite is from the Burlington, Vermont branch. Welcome, Marguerite. Give us the details.
Hi, I'm very pleased to be here. I am the coordinator for a WILPF project with Earth Democracy called the Vermont PFAS/Military Poisons Project. And PFAS, in case you're not familiar with what it stands for, is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS. And they're known as forever chemicals, and they have been all over the news lately. So it's been pretty hard to avoid hearing something about PFAS wherever you live in the United States. And that's especially true since the EPA lowered its lifetime advisory limits for PFAS, at least the two most common forms of PFAS, to almost 0 parts per trillion, PPT, and that was from 70 parts per trillion, which was the original lifetime advisory. So we're talking about the recognition that these particular poisons, and that's what they are highly, highly toxic. They're in our air, they're in our water, they're in our soil, they're in our food, they're in our personal hygiene products, they're in landfills, they're everywhere. And at this point, we in Vermont have been working hard to pass legislation to help turn off the tap to PFAS. What I'm offering is using our WILPF website called Military Poisons, which is part of Earth Democracy, is to tailor a Zoom workshop to your WILPF branch at your convenience to help attract new members who might be interested in environmental issues. And even if you just want to educate yourself, what I'll do is I'll tailor that workshop by finding out where your branch is and then researching where PFAS is in your area in terms of the water, the military sites, the commercial sites, etc. I'll show you how to use the Military Poisons website so that you yourself can conduct research. I'll show you the laws that your state has passed and the ones that it probably should pass and the ones that it's currently considering in a legislative session. And I'll also show you ways that you can reduce your personal risk to PFAS contamination and the personal risk of your grandchildren and the future generations. So what I'm offering is a 1-hour workshop tailored to your needs and to your time that you can advertise to the community so that they can learn more, you can learn more, and if you choose, take action. If you want to contact me, I will paste in the chat the information here, but I have a pretty simple address. It's PFAS info, PFAS info at WILPFUS.org. So all you have to do is write me and I'll be in touch and we can start talking together about how to make a workshop work for you and your branch. As Darian said, it's the year of the branch and I'm happy to help. Thanks, Mary Beth.
Thanks, Marguerite. What a generous offer, and what a great way for branches to use this unfortunate situation to educate their communities and maybe pick up some new members along the way. I wanted to introduce Nancy Price, chair of the Earth Democracy Committee, about an opportunity during 2023 and 2024 to work with allies across the country on a more democratic alternative to COP28. The indigenous environmental activists around the world and the climate activists have mostly lost faith in the UN process of addressing climate change. And they feel that the COP meetings have been completely co-opted by big corporations who are looking at greenwashing profiteering instead of democratic and sustainable solutions. So they feel that way with good reason. In Des Moines, we saw this happen over a period of years with what used to be a people-based bottom-up program called the World Food Prize. The event began as a collaborative sharing of sustainable alternatives being developed by independent scientists who were working in cooperation with sustainable farmers, indigenous water protectors, and NGOs whose purpose was honorable, like Bread for the World and others. But over the course of very few years, that small ragtag conference grew and became very corporate. Hybrid seed companies, big chemical companies, and GMO proponents, subsidized scientists brought shiny banners and sponsored fancy meals and brought in speakers who all agreed, no dissent ever, with their pro-GMO rhetoric. And in about 10 years, that once annual conference brought a fancy building, totally renovated it, and we're paying big bucks for executive staff. This is exactly what's happening at the UN, where the voices of ordinary people are being silenced. But those who work closest to the earth and understand most personally the dangers of climate change and how unsustainable farming, fossil fuels, and extractive industries are raping Mother Earth and the economically depressed communities in the way, those people are not being heard. So a movement is beginning to organize people-based alternatives to COP meetings. The concept of Earth assemblies is being discussed, and every continent and nation could host their own Earth assembly, both in person and virtually. Could WILPF support that kind of effort in North America or the US? Nancy Price, can you tell us more about what that might look like and what your contacts are telling you about it? Maybe you could also outline how we might begin to envision a role for our section through possible long-term solidarity actions we organize. Welcome, Nancy. Are you there? I see Nancy, but I don't hear her. Are you on mute?
I was on mute. I'm very sorry.
Oh,
If you
okay.
could put up the text pad, that would be great with the text that I provided. Well, this idea of Earth assemblies is very exciting, I think, because it's being proposed and discussed among a group of people under the leadership of Pablo Salón. And I'd just like to introduce to you Pablo Salón, because so many of you may not know about him and what he has accomplished so far. But he's a citizen of Bolivia. For many years, he worked with different social organizations, indigenous movements, worker unions, student associations, human rights, and cultural organizations in Bolivia. He was then in the administration of Evo Morales, where he served as ambassador for issues, various issues such as integration and trade, Secretary of the Union of South American Nations, and other groups. Then he was appointed to be ambassador of the plurinational state of Bolivia to the United Nations from February 2009 to 2011. And there he served, and he also was serving as executive director of the Focus on the Global South, a think tank in Bangkok, Thailand, from 2013 to 2016, excuse me. So he has these many years of experience, contacts, working in networks, particularly in Asia and Latin America. As ambassador of the United Nations, he spearheaded resolutions on the human right to water, International Mother Earth Day, harmony with nature, and rights of indigenous peoples. So those resolutions were passed by the United Nations General Assembly. And you can really appreciate, I think, that now with many people of the countries of the South so discouraged about the COP27 United Nations Climate Summit in Egypt, and even before that, they've been discouraged about the outcome of those meetings, that now he's proposed that Earth assemblies could be organized from the local to the global scale of events and mutual organizing. And also he's proposed that there should be an alternative alternative COP process, that is, that would be parallel to the formal United Nations climate summit process, either in 2023 or 2024. So he unveiled this proposal in a series of conferences over the fall, and then at the European Social Forum in Florence, Italy, on November 2012, November 12th, last fall, he introduced this at the same time that COP27 was meeting in a parallel virtual presentation. It was very well received, and so now there's more discussion going on about how to sort of roll this out, how to engage people. And what I have on the text pad, which is too much to read now, but you can sort of glance over it, is the call to action for Earth assemblies. I have emailed with him, but I do not have the final edited version of the call to action for Earth assemblies. And I'm waiting to receive that from him. But I will be writing a e-news article for the February e-news to really describe this much better without hurrying now, and to really try to engage branches and members in thinking through this opportunity, whether something could be organized by branches and members for World Water Day. The theme of World Water Day this year is toilets. That connects up with Sustainable Development Goal 6, which is clean water and sanitation. Or for World Earth Day, the theme is invest in the planet, which of course is taking a somewhat, what would you say, an approach to it's more corporate, more commodity oriented, although there's planting trees is one of the activities, but it's not in the spirit of the Earth assemblies that Pablo Solon is proposing. So I'll put the details in the e-news article, and here is my, do you have my email there, Mary Beth?
Yes, it's at the top here.
Yeah, here's my email. If you would like to contact me for some more discussion, I'd welcome that. And let's see if we can't create maybe a solidarity event, perhaps around Earth Day, perhaps later in the spring, to see if we could launch an Earth Assembly in some of the branches. Thank you very much, and onward for Mother Earth.
Thank you so much, Nancy. If folks have questions for Nancy, you can, or you want to make comments about what you heard, or you just want to generally respond, please raise your hand. You can use that with the action buttons, or you can just raise your hand in your camera, and Marybeth and I will be looking for you to see if anyone has any discussion that they would like to keep going with.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, I'll just add that every one of our branches is probably aware of some local experts who could speak to some aspect of climate change and eco-collapse and the threats from capitalism and ruthless, unsustainable methods on our planet. So I'm sure that there are some folks we could at least suggest from our local areas who might be able to participate in these assemblies.
Well, this is also a wonderful opportunity to engage with the youth who are coming out for Friday Strikes for Climate, and also to engage, creative artists for banners, posters, plays, singing, acting of all kinds, speaking, poetry. I think it's a way to really bring in a much broader group of people participating than perhaps we have currently. And so I'm working up various ideas for Earth Democracy, for the Earth Democracy e-news on February, and welcome then even more discussion and response then.
Darian has her hand up, and so does Eileen Perkoski.
Oh, Darian?
Eileen was first.
Oh, sorry, Eileen?
Eileen, you're muted.
Me. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to remind people that we all, I think, know the importance of supporting climate issues and nuclear weapons use issues. But don't forget there's this other one that's growing rapidly. And I just put a little message in the chat about autonomous killer weapons. We have to bring that up and at least start talking about it, learning more about it, because we don't need a third major existential threat. And that's what I see from this further development of quantum computing that can have more than just autonomous little robots like we have now already, but major issues with total collapse of our infrastructure, as well as lots of killing. Sorry to be gloomy. We have a lot of work, and I'm willing to work on everything I can for each of the issues that have been brought up. I think people know I'm a little nutty that way because I care deeply about all of this. But just keep it in mind. And if you can pick up this Scheer book, Paul Scheer is probably the best writer on this issue of autonomous killers.
How do you spell his last name?
It's in the chat. It's Schearre, Paul Scheer, Army of None. Weapons, autonomous weapons and the future of war.
Are you sure you put it in the chat? I'm looking for it. Are you sure you said send?
Oh, no, I didn't. You're right. Try that. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
I have to say we have an autonomous killer weapon right now in California by the name of water. And part of the concerns about water are that we have so much water when we're not ready for it, and in the whole Western US practically, we have a severe drought. But specifically going to what you were talking about, Nancy, I wondered if you have some comment on, apparently for COP28, next year's COP, we'll have a petroleum corporation executive heading the COP. That certainly, the Congress of Parties, that certainly highlights the need for what you're describing, but I wondered if you wanted to add a comment. Thank you.
Well, I think there's going to be quite a bit of discussion with the WILPF International Environmental Working Group about how we consider participation or not, or a specific kind of participation in COP28. It's being held in the United Arab Emirates, another country similar to Egypt, where there was suppression of marching and demonstration and even speaking and rallying around a progressive message or a protest message of, against the corporate capture of COP. And the overrepresentation of the fossil fuel companies and the lobbyists at this COP27, as it was actually in COP26. So I think that will be coming up, and it's a very serious matter. And I think that's why Pablo Salon has proposed an alternative gathering to COP. The countries of the South that are so desperate for funding for the loss and damages they experience from catastrophic climate events, and also for a green fund that will help in mitigation and adaptation to be able to withstand extreme climate events, that the fossil fuel companies and the countries of the North are really reluctant to fund. So we're really at a number of sort of tipping points in how we respond to the needs of the countries of the South, and how we also respond to the corporate capture of the UN.
Okay, well, I think this is a much longer discussion, and we'll continue to try to envision how our section might collaborate with other allies on Earth assemblies. There's a lot that could be done, but it's a lot of work and our capacity is limited. So how we'll be talking in the future about what are the practicalities of what we can do, and how can we manage it. So that's about all the time we have for this One WILPF call. I want to thank my assistant partner here, Ashley, for her help on the script and facilitation, and for landing such a really excellent speaker for us. Please put the next call on your calendar right now. It's Thursday, March 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, and 4 p.m. Pacific. If you're on our WILPF mailing list, you'll automatically get an alert reminding you. And if you're not, you might want to consider subscribing. You can do that just by going into our website, or list your email now in the chat, and we'll add you to that list, so you're sure to get an alert for the next call. If you or someone you know has interest in helping with these calls, please be in touch with me as soon as possible. I'm at mbgardam@gmail.com. I'll put that in the chat.
Thank you, Marybeth and Ashley, for all the work you put into this. It's really a wonderful opportunity to hear from people and know from our guests and from our WILPF issue committees. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for attending. We really appreciate it. Again, make sure that you put it on your calendar, March 9th, for that next One WILPF call. Thank you very much for Sally for being with us. That constant situation is that situation is constantly evolving. So please make sure you check out those links that she dropped into the chat so that you can keep up to date with the most current information. And I encourage those who are NC to plug in with Sally and myself for International Feminists of NC, because we will definitely be doing some things in conjunction with WILPF as well. And be sure to hang on for the informal soapbox segment, which will be immediately following this call. That's where we'll hang out, share a little bit of feedback from the call, more discussion, and share what's going on with each other personally, because I haven't seen some of you, so we want to hear how everybody's doing and how life is going. So let's all unmute and say good night, and thank you again.
Good night.
Good night. Amazing night.